Hi, guys. Welcome back. And I think it's about time to look at what I consider to be one of the probably least entertaining, least exciting parts of the game. So we're going to look at here is the weekly staff meeting. I'm just going to sort of take you through one and let you know what I think about what's going on. So the story behind the weekly staff meeting is that in earlier versions of Football Manager, a lot of this stuff was split up into like emails that would come to you like once a week where they would say, hey, start training this guy on this, or stop training that guy on that, or this guy should be recognized as this player or that player. Is really kind of annoying. You know, a lot of this stuff, if you go with the advice, will really screw up a lot of your relationships with your players. The training stuff is not always all that clear whether you want your player to do this certain thing or not. And it's not really all that well designed. But let's go take a look at this really quick. So we're going to go here into this meeting. You have to attend the meeting. You can't really say no to it. All right, and you can see here, individual training to start. So, okay, we want aerial training for Mateus Lazzo. We want endurance training for Shushu. We want a aerial training program for Li Chang as well. And so because I don't have attributes turned on, normally I don't really know what these attributes are, but here it will show this to me. Now, with a 13 in heading and a 10 in bravery, I'm not so convinced that Lazzo is going to really benefit from this type of training, right? His game is weak, but for many other reasons, we're probably going to end up selling him. I've not been impressed with him at all, but we might as well do it. I don't really have any reason not to do this. And, you know, my alternative option would be like to click over onto him, go over in development and training, and like take a look here to see what this says down here. And we can ask like somebody else too, well, what does this assistant manager think? Why do we have 3 assistant managers at this club? I don't know. But when we look through this at every single coach, they all tell us the exact same thing, right? I know what others have said. I've watched like the Zealand videos and stuff. I know that if you ask for the opinion of like some other person, they'll tell you something different, right? Like apparently this coach happens to have no comments about him, right? But you'll notice that most of them have the exact same thing to say every single time. I'm not certain why it's that way. I'm not certain why they think he needs to work more in the air. Right? Again, these are not awful ratings. They're probably better than a lot of our other players. Whatever. It's telling me to do this. I want to get through this meeting. I'll just hit accept all suggestions. And then this is the other thing that happens, right? So all of the trainings that we have that are individual are suggestions that came from the other coaches. So you can see Lavia's individual shooting training is a waste of time, because it's not really a weakness in his game. And Yen Dawe's quickness training is not good because it's not a weakness in the game, despite the fact that he's got a 9 and a 7 in that. So then we just hit accept all and we kind of remove it. I mean, what's the point of that, right? Now, because of the way I have this set up, I can't really even go back and see whether it's had an impact or not. Right, but I really have to ask myself, like, why are we taking things on and then taking them off and then putting them back on and then putting them back off again? And I mean, aside from like knowing all of the attributes and having a very, very like specific plan as to the types of players that I want to have, I really don't see what other point any of this would serve. Now, if you have a specific plan, if you want, for example, to have a real pacey striker, and so you want your strikers to work more and more on pace and acceleration, right? It's possible they can get there, possible that they might not, but you'll find that your coaches in these meetings will tell you the opposite thing. Now, this is the other thing I dislike, right? Coaching assignments to add, and it tells you, oh, we need to balance the coaching assignments better. You can do that yourself. I can't remember if it was under 21s or the under whatevers. You go over here to training. It's going to take a second because I have so many players on this squad, which is probably part of the reason why the owner doesn't want to give me more money for a transfer budget. Imagine that. But once we're able to get this open back up here, again, we can go into training and we can look at the coach setup. Now, I know everybody will tell you, oh, you don't want to just have the game do this automatically. Instead, you should do it yourself. Boy, this is taking a long time. Having said that, like, it really, really can become frustrating. So if you want those messages to go away and for the assistant coaches to stop bothering you about like who's doing what assignment for coach training, which is something that seems honestly to me to be like a complete waste of the manager's time. Like, why do you care that much about this? I can't believe that this thing's not loaded up. Here we go. Yeah, so if you go over to training and you go over to coaches, this is what you can do, and you can go into edit coaching assignments. It's not going to do any good here because we have no stars. Oh, and look, everything's at very heavy. That's because we have, as you saw, like 200 whatever players on that squad, right? So, I mean, yeah, I know that like we're going to want to, you know, do something different, but it's not going to matter. Oh, sorry, it was for the under 19s, right? I mean, whatever. I'm just going to hit accept suggestion and not even care about it, right? This is one of those problems with the game that is really, really frustrating, right? The way that the coaching assignments work, it's just so linear. It's so basic and so kind of like good rating equals high stars equals some good thing happening to your player's development, right? It's not nuanced. It doesn't really matter what this guy's like personality is. It doesn't really matter if he has a good relationship with the players or not. None of that's really taken into consideration. It's really just look at rating. High rating equals many stars. Low rating equals few stars, right? Whatever, accept suggestion, and then you can see, oh, this guy's overloaded, that guy's overloaded. Well, no wonder he's an under 21s coach. So we'll accept all suggestions, right? And then, oh, this is the part that I love the most, where so-and-so is unhappy with training. My experience is that happiness with training usually has more to do with the player's professionalism level than it does with anything else. Like, you can try anything you want to try to get away from different types of training, but really, since professionalism is hidden, chances are these players do not have particularly professional personalities. I don't even know if this guy, yeah, here we go, it shows up, he's balanced and he's determined. And so, I mean, it's really neither here nor there. With these guys who are unhappy with training, you want to sort of like make a mental note of that and remember that when it's time to sell guys, you probably want to sell these guys who keep complaining about their training schedule, right? I mean, it's a sign of lack of professionalism rather than an actual sign of unhappiness. I've tried many, many different things with Football Manager. I've never been able to get rid of training unhappiness beyond just selling the player and buying somebody who's more professional. That's really the way to do it. When it comes to this, moving guys back and forth between squads, I usually will look at them to make sure I remember which squad they're in. So, yeah, if he wants to be in the under 21s, do it. And if Li Xiaocheng wants to be on the under 21s, he can also do it because he's on the other 19s. Occasionally, they'll tell me that a player on the first team squad should move back down for some stupid reason. Doesn't really make sense. This stuff's a complete waste of time. Oh, the overall squad has had a positive effect. I mean, he's trying to tell me that some sort of like hidden attribute has increased because they've been positively impacted. But I mean, this is the dumbest way to possibly say that. It doesn't tell me anything. All it tells me is just something that, doesn't really compute, doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really add anything to like, getting really immersed and really deep down into Football Manager, right? And then you can talk here about improvements in training. You can look this up yourself if you really want. Again, this is something that's really useless to bring up in one of these meetings, so we can see what his progress is. If you have a normal game, you'll see star ratings here as well. Liu Xiaoziyang's making some progress, yeah, but I want him to stop giving up stupid goals like he did in our last game, right? He gave up 2 goals in the last game and probably shouldn't have given up either one. Right, and then it'll tell you, oh, this is your backing from the squad, and then, oh, well, this guy Sun Yannan hasn't progressed at all, and we should be concerned about this. I am pretty concerned about it. Part of the thing you'll notice is that he's balanced. That would be a problem. If we look into his history, we did actually pay money for this guy, so we should probably pay some sort of attention to him. I think if we go to the coach report, yeah, it says doesn't have the required ability to progress. If we go look at his progress in the 1 year that he's been at the club, he's done absolutely nothing. So we'll probably wind up selling him. I mean, he's still young, so maybe we'll loan him out for a few years if somebody will take him in. And then, yeah, let's say, oh, this player has high potential, right? And then, okay, we can praise guys for playing well. I mean, that's all that the meeting really is, right? It's very, very rare in this meeting that you'll get something out of it where you're like, oh, man, we really need to make that change. Or, oh, this is something that's really important to my game. This is something that, changes the way that I play or is a complete game changer or whatever. That doesn't happen a lot. Usually what happens with these meetings is you just see like, a bunch of like kind of random, little stuff that, it's like trying to, being told to go do your chores. A lot of this stuff is stuff that really I would hope that the coaches or the assistant manager could just do and no longer tell me about because I clearly don't care that much. Now, I do think that individual training for players can be important. Training players on trying to acquire certain traits can also be important, but the difference between the traits, what exactly they do and what impact it has in the game is not always that clear. There's not really clear, well-written material about that out there. It's a little different than the way the personalities work. And it can be very, very frustrating when they recommend this in game. I would like to see something different, right? I would like to see something more along the lines of like everybody at the club knows where we're going. We have a very, very specific agenda. And instead of bringing up all of this little crap, we're talking instead about, okay, we need improvement here and improvement there. Or maybe you have something from like the data center coming in saying, hey, our last match looked like this was good, this was bad, things like that are actually somewhat useful, right? You want to have a meeting that's less of sort of a click fest and instead of meeting that's more actual interaction with coaches, and that tells you something about players that you can actually put into action and might actually make a difference in your save. Because every one of the things that we just looked through was, basically irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. I just click OK, and then something happens in the background, and then we move on to the next thing, right? Anyway, that's my opinion on that. I'd love to know what your opinion is. Football Manager has two problems. Problem number one is it's way too meeting heavy, right? The idea is that the storyline is going to progress through a meeting. Yeah, that sounds like somebody who works for a large corporation, as Sports Interactive is becoming, and sort of like the way that they see the world. That doesn't seem to me to be exactly the way that this would happen. And problem number two is that everything happens through your inbox, right? We've been told for years that they're going to get away from the focus on the inbox and get towards you going into other screens and doing stuff yourself and really exploring the game. That just hasn't happened. Instead, it's still something comes into your inbox and then you go react to it. That's the wrong way to run the game. You need to be able to do things proactively as a manager, and you need to be expected to do that instead of just sitting back and waiting for things to come to you, right? I mean, I want to see the game completely change in that regard. Anyway, just a little bit of a complaint on my part. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.